just tweeted, and I saw you tweet earlier.
Mm-hmm. I'll definitely retweet it when I get it.
Sounds good. And get this party started. So again, after the replays, if there's any time left, we'll have you play a game or two against somebody live. And I'll actually, when you play, I'll try not to talk too much. So
I can talk and play pretty well.
Yeah. So again, yeah, I'll have you. You know, I'll encourage. Obviously, we'll have you play. Definitely talk because I know it's a little bit more distracting when you're listening. I'll try not to talk too much. So actually, I hear myself.
I can talk and play pretty well.
Yeah. So again, yeah, I'll have you. Actually, I'll encourage. Obviously.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah. And yeah, have you walk through hopefully some of the things we talked about and the Q&A at the end, like as usual.
Sounds good. Yeah, I don't have any speakers or anything like that. It's just my headset and microphone, so there's no way it's coming from me, I don't think.
Hey guys, what's up? Glad you could make it today. Check out our day show we're gonna have today. But hopefully you guys are having, you know, as good a day as I have. I've been having one of those days where it's just like I've got this list of stuff on this kind of chalkboard over here that I have, or not chalkboard, but a marker board I have over here, and every day I have like about 10, 20 things that I've listed out, and today I've just been knocking them down like a beast. So obviously I'm down to the bullet point where it's showtime. So it's always great to do the show for you guys, and it always gets me actually really juiced up, and particularly when I have somebody I'm really enthused about and really believe in the way he teaches. So And that today, of course, is EG.iNcontroL. And today should be an awesome day. I'm going to pull him on in just a second before when we do introductions. But before that, I want to get a couple of housekeeping things kind of out of the way. So if you noticed, I was talking about a giveaway that we're going to be doing. We're actually not doing the giveaway today, but we're starting the entries for the giveaways today, and we'll do the actual giveaway on Monday. So we kind of have a few days to kind of build up, get those entries in, and can win this TTE Saphira mouse right here, the white raw Saphira mouse. It's a pretty cool mouse, and I know 3 or 4 people actually use it, and they really love that mouse. So big thanks to TT Esports for helping us do these giveaways for you guys. But anyway, so why don't we get the show started? Let me pull Jeff on real quick. Switch this over, and we'll start talking to him. Give him the proper introduction he deserves. Here we go. Yo, Jeff.
Hey, how's it going?
How's it going? So everybody, of course, we have EG.iNcontroL on today. And for those of you who don't know iNcontroL, you guys have probably been under a rock for about 2-3 years now. So this guy is just everywhere in esports, doing all kinds of things, from playing to casting to doing shows, and it's just everywhere. So awesome, Jeff's incredible figure in our community. So it's always a pleasure to have him on my show. And particularly, I love having him on the show in this capacity because, lots of people say certain things about, your play or, just your hosting and your casting. But one thing that I feel like nobody can ever say anything negative about is really your coaching and your teaching and your ability to talk about strategy. So, really happy to have you on, buddy.
Oh, thank you for having me. Yeah. I'm thrilled. As you say, I find myself, to pat myself on the back a little bit. I think I'm a pretty good coach, but I like talking StarCraft in any capacity, and one of my big passions has always been teaching. That was something I was probably going to do if I didn't do StarCraft, and to be able to combine the two is pretty awesome that we have that ability, so I'm thrilled. Awesome.
So today what we're going to do is we're going to have him walk through some PvT strategies, and really go in depth. That's the thing about Jeff, is that it's pretty easy to go, really dig down deep into the details of the strategies. And so that's what we're going to do. And, another reason why I want to explain before we get started is that, I wanted to have Jeff just on the show by himself. Because in the past, I've been trying to, do our dual coaching kind of shows, because I know you guys love the dual coaching shows. You love the kind of collaboration, that kind of thing between the players. But I don't know. It just wasn't quite right for me the previous times we did it. So I just wanted to hammer it out just with Jeff today, and this should be really awesome. So why don't we get started? Why don't we start off, before getting into the game? Why don't we start off by getting your opinions on what you think the metagame is for PvT right now, and maybe some really key elements that you think that people should really think about.
Well, PvT used to be one of the more difficult matchups for Protoss several months back. This is largely in part because a lot of the maps were smaller, so that meant any time you made a critical mistake, like 4 or 5 sentries got caught off guard, or a War Prism goes down for free, or a Colossus gets picked off by bad angle against a Viking or something like that, or a cluster of Vikings, as it were. That meant that you were going to enjoy a higher variance of punishment for that kind of thing. So you were going to lose quicker because the Terran army that doesn't build as fast but does retain units better is going to get to that.
Ooh. Hello? You there? Uh-oh. I think we might have lost him. Well, hopefully we will get Jeff back on here. I think he might have just lost.
Hey, man.
Oh, you there? You back? Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. Where did I get cut off?
You were just about to talk about getting into the metagame there. Let's just start over. That's fine.
Huh. Well, I didn't hear anything. Okay. In general, the maps have gotten a lot better for Protoss. I guess the abbreviated point that I was trying to make earlier, and that is that the maps have gotten larger. The ramps leading into naturals make it so that fewer sentries can hold off larger armies, which means Protoss players can do things like cut corners. So that's why we're seeing a lot of these double forge plays, whereas if you're playing on like a Metalopolis or Shattered Temple to a certain degree, it's a little bit harder to do that because there's A, the option for close air, which means dropships and Banshees get there faster, but B, you don't have that ramp where you can say, okay, sure, you've got a bigger army than I do, but I've got force fields from sentries that allow me to go ahead and engage on my turn. So more maps like, and of course we saw that element of play in maps like Shakir's Plateau, but we're seeing more of that in Tomb Valley. Even Ohana has that to a very high degree. So the bigger the maps get and the more that we have ramps leading into naturals, the better the map is for Protoss. And this is pretty much across the board, but we see that in PvT again because of that prevalence of the double forge play. Outside of that, the metagame's really nice. I think Protoss players have refined their gameplay down. It used to be like people would go DTs, they would throw in like a lot of 4 gates. I think Protoss, you'll still see those things to a certain degree, but you're seeing them being scaled back in the name of straight up 2 or 3 base Protoss play. And that's because they figured out things like, okay, if I go Colossus, when I hit that magic number of 3 Colossus, I want to segue into Templar, only to return back to Colossus when I'm on 4 or 5 base economy. And the reason why 3 Colossus is such a magic number is because at that time you can still be chrono boosting your forges, you can still be producing stalkers to your heart's content, and you can actually funnel gas, because you're not making Colossus anymore, towards Templar, which is really nice because that complicates the Terran economy and their production much more than it does the Protoss economy. 3 Colossus, you need to have anywhere between 12 and 15 Vikings, but the Terran doesn't know that you're stopping at 3 Colossus, because if you show up with 4 or 5 Colossus and enough stalkers to pick off the Vikings, 3 or 4 Colossus doing one-way damage against a Terran player is certain doom for that Terran player, and they know that. So that's why the burden is more on the Terran player, which means the Protoss player is free to make more lax decisions, if you will, whereas the Terrans, the Terrans walking a tightrope. If they underestimate the Colossi, they can die. If they overestimate the Colossi and the Protoss switches to Templar, they can die as well.
Right, and that's what a lot of Terrans have been complaining about recently. That that's much harder to play Terran than Protoss in the matchup because of that that kind of composition. They have to have the exact right composition, right, to defend against the Colossi or the Templar. So talk to me the difference between opening Colossi and then going into Templar versus opening Templar and then going into Colossi.
I'm actually a pretty... Did my webcam freeze again?
Yeah, it did.
Might be coming back, maybe. I gotta apologize on everyone's behalf. This is actually technical difficulties on my side. This is absolutely not your fault. So let me see if I can restart my webcam here. My graphics card got swapped out when everybody was in the house. Mm-hmm. And since then I've been having issues, so we're trying to work on it. We're going to fix it today, hopefully.
Cool. Yeah, we're back. So
okay, cool. Anyways, so the difference between opening Colossi and Templar, and I want to kind of temper this point by saying you can... Well, basically the point I would make here is that there's varying degrees of yes and no to both the things I'm about to say, because while what I'm about to say is not an absolute truth, it's mostly true. So I want people to work within the constraints of understanding that you don't have to follow what I say on this point specifically as a rule, because it's more of like a guideline, I would say. So if you go Colossus in general, this is the easier tech to go because it's quite simple. You're not going to face 20 Vikings right out of the gate, so you don't have to worry about a hard counter. It should be a fairly soft counter for the first 15 minutes, unless you completely neglect to make any stalkers or sentries or archons or something that hits the air. In which case, your Colossus are in trouble because you're kind of an idiot. But as long as you open up Colossus, you have the option to attack, but they're also great defender units. Being able to walk up and down walls means that they get to those medevacs that touch down in inconvenient places a little bit quicker than everybody else does. Their range also allows them to, again, poke and prod at those dropships, or at least what's dropping from the dropships, at an earlier time and at a distance that's potentially safe. So those are the nice things about the Colossi. The other thing, too, is the Terran player has to respect their attack power. There's no, micro-dodging of the laser from a Colossus, right? If it shoots, it's going to hit something. And the reason I make that point specifically is because on the flip side, we have Templar, which, in my opinion, are far and away more powerful defending the earlier you get them. So let me explain this point. If I'm making Templar at roughly the 10-minute mark, I'm not going to have as many as I would be potentially on 4 or 5 base economy and warping off of 20 gateways. Every time I warp into Templar, it's a much more precious unit at that time because it represents a higher degree of my resources at that time consumed. But then also it represents, I should only have like 5 or 6 gateways at the very most, or maybe if you're doing something crazy like 8 gates. In any case, it represents a higher percentage of your overall production. So the reason they're better for defending is, again, because it's easier to storm as guys are coming at you, because you can lead them, and it soaks into the full stream of guys, or it controls their movement. They have to move backwards. Also, feedback is easier, because, again, it's easier to feedback something coming into your range as opposed to going towards something to get it into range, because then it can fly away, or something you can step forward and hit you before you can get into that range. So when you're attacking with Templar, it's easier for your opponent to micro dodge them, or like I said, for things to get outside the range of things you need to be doing. So when I go Templar, what I really want to be doing is I want to be utilizing the fear of that unit, because I think it commands just about as much respect as a Colossus. And what I mean by that is, if a guy just sits under a storm and he's got mostly Marines, those Marines are gone. They're absolutely fried, and that's something that a Colossus can't do as fast. So Terran players really have to avoid those storms. So when they see a Templar, Terrans are like, holy shit, and they run for the hills. They're done. They got to get out of there, right? So there definitely is the potential attack. They're better at defending, and again, this is why I gave so much lip service to kind of listen to what I say as a guideline as opposed to a rule. I don't want people taking away from this, you cannot attack with Templar in the first 15 minutes, but I do want them to take away from this, if I go Templar as my opener, I should probably push towards having a faster third, a bigger army, and then working towards, again, switching back the Colossus for the same reasons you'd switch from Colossus to Viking. If they see Templar, they're going to go Ghost. Ghost, not that fantastic against Colossus, especially if they have no Vikings. So when 4 Colossus show up and they've got 10 Ghosts but no Vikings, it's a good day to be Protoss.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty good explanation of it, I think. So why don't we get the first replay started? I think, and we can, again, I think reinforce that, since I know you opened Colossi in the first one here against Fnatic Rain.
All right, let me open that one up.
Let's load that puppy up. And this replay is going to be on Tal'Darim.
Yeah.
What are your feelings on Tal'Darim?
This map has come in and out of my favor in terms of it's been a love-hate relationship. Like, I like it because it has a ramp leading to the natural. It has a third that, yes, there is some space where Vikings can get up in there, and it makes it a little bit problematic for stalkers to shoot them down. And also, there's multi-prong attack options there. It also has a fairly large main, which means that dropships can land, unload their payload, stem, and then run into those critical spaces. So that kind of gets difficult at times. But as long as you're spreading your pylons, you have your observers, you're controlling the towers, and you kind of see where the Terran's moving, this is a large map with a lot of bases. I feel like it more rewards Protoss. As long as they're checking on hidden bases, they're following the Terran army, Warp Gate becomes really strong here. And then again, ramps leading to bases is such a key element for Protoss play. If I can drop a couple force fields and stop you from attacking, if I can storm as you run up that ramp, those are the components of success for a Protoss player.
Okay. Why don't we get to 2 minutes here? Fast forward to 2 minutes, and then we'll start there. Game's a little bit a longer game, but there's definitely a ton to discuss in this one. Also, why don't you talk a little bit about, on big maps like this? I know you're really, really good about building pylons all around the map. Just kind of generally speaking throughout the game.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of talk.
Just tell me when to start the replay. I'm at 2 minutes.
Okay, I am too. Here goes 3, 2, 1. Go at normal or faster speed.
Okay. Pylons around the map. I'm glad you asked about that. If we're going to talk about PvT and things that people perhaps know about but don't know to emphasize, this would be one of the first things I would start with. And the very simple fact of the matter is, pylons in this, let's be real here, against Zerg you should do the same thing. Against Protoss to a lesser extent, but to the same effect you should do the same thing. But of the 3 matchups, PvP, PvT, PvZ, PvT is the one where at the end of a 30-minute game, I would not fault you if you had 8 pylons outside your base. And the reason is you can spot expansions, You can warp in on high ground overlooking low ground, so nice little things like storming medevacs or ditching Templar around the map and then storming. Poe is very excited about storming. Potentially storming armies as they walk by. Really powerful stuff. But the other important element here too is they act as like little way stations. They're your ability to, like if the battle just kind of takes you over there, you warp in units to reinforce. Or if a battle is up here and you need to retreat back to that location, you can then warp in again. I mean, it's a little safety net that makes it better for you. And a lot of people, I mean, their hesitation is A, the multitasking, B, just remembering to do it, but C, some people go, well gosh, if the guy kills 5 or 6 pylons, you know, that's kind of expensive. That's supply that can really hurt you. But think about it this way: if a little you know, doodad popped up in the lower right hand side and said, "Hey, for 100 minerals, would you like to know a drop's coming to your third?"
Right.
What Protoss player would say, "Nah"? I mean, obviously they have the information now, I guess, but
Right.
they would click that doodad. Is the point I'm trying to make. So if I can pay 100 minerals to know my opponent's taking a third, to know a drop is coming, or to have the option to reinforce my army or to storm, you know, key units, or feedback ghosts, then I would do it. I would absolutely do it.
Yeah, it's a little bit analogous, but even more functional than as a Zerg using overlords, right? To really see the entire map. But you know, on top of that, you can warp people in, and you can actually create different angles of attack or 2-prong attacks and that kind of thing too. So yeah, those are
extra
wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about opening with the core versus going 1 gate expand.
Well, 1 gate expand usually actually, I'm not sure how familiar you are with PvT, but usually when they say 1 gate expand, they do mean with the cybernetics core.
Oh, do they? Okay. Oops.
Yeah, and the reason you don't want to delay the cybernetics core is again because that warp gate upgrade. It's kind of like larva inject for Zerg. It would seem like, you know, cutting out the spawning pool and going super fast hatch is just always the better choice. And this is a little bit worse of an example because it usually actually is. But the point is, you wouldn't want to delay your spawning pool too much further because that allows you extra larva, which blows up your production. Well, the same is true for warp gate. But the same is also true for the Stalker. The Stalker is the unit that does most of the scouting for Protoss in this early game. Like, if you check my vision right now, I was fortunate enough to see that command center, so that's the expansion command center, that is.
Yep.
So that's why I went 3 gates, and then eventually I think I'll go Robo here. Yep, that's what I'm doing. If I don't see that command center, I can't, I mean I can, but I'd be taking a risk. Say to myself, well, he's probably expanding, so I'll just make gateways and not worry about things like Banshees or a 1-1-1 or something like that. But in this case, I had good intel. Now, the point I was trying to make is that with the Stalker, we can actually dink and dock against that Marine force as it pokes out. So you can see here I'm actually not utilizing that. That's a bit of a mistake, to be honest with you. But also we can, before that observer pops out, see things like, okay, he did build a bunker, and there is a command center.
Right.
We get those answers earlier on.
Okay, so now you have that number of sentries right at the ramp like you were talking about, earlier. Just being able to protect this ramp, and that really opens or keeps the Protoss are just a lot safer with these ramps that you were talking about.
Right.
So here comes the observer, and at this point, what do you think? I mean, you're obviously you're continuing probing and saturating. That's the natural. But at this point, what are you working towards? Okay, so here comes the Colossi.
Yeah, there's the robotics, but you can see it's quite quick, and I do go with the 1 forge. I'm not sure if I had a second one right off the bat. I've been seeing Sock do 1 forge, and then he actually goes +1 attack as opposed to +1 armor, which is what a lot of people do.
Okay.
So I think there's a good chance that in this game I'm trying to emulate that. But with this fast Colossus, it's very similar to what we've seen Squirtle do. And I talked earlier on about cutting corners. But look at my army. It's a Zealot, a Stalker, and then 5 sentries, and that's not an army at all. But because there is a ramp here, and because I do have control of the towers, I can say to myself, well, even if he attacks right now, and on paper my army is weaker than his, the force fields will buy me time to get that Colossus out. The warp gates will allow me to add that extra insulation to my army that I need. And just a quick side note here, I do go with the armor, and it's just off the 1 forge, so kind of interesting choice, a little bit different than what Sock does. But with these fast Colossi, again, they represent such tremendous attack power. Like right now, Fanatic Rain, look at his tech, just tons of barracks. He does already have a starport out. And he's got up to 5 factories here, but he has no upgrades going in his own name. So when he sees that I have Colossus and he wants to make medevacs, he's in a tough spot. Does he keep making medevacs because that's what he wants to do to support his army, or does he have to now go Viking? But then I switch out of Colossus, go Templar, and that's where that's where we start to really screw with his composition.
Right. Yeah, it's really difficult for Terran because they have to know exactly when you make that switch too, to really be able to to defend properly. Okay, so here we go. Sees your Colossi, just starts running.
Yep, and he's just going to back away right away. I mean, if he shows up and I don't have the Colossus, this is his time to attack. You can see the Observer was shadowing his army, so I know exactly that he's pushing back. I did see the 2 medevacs, though, so I'm very wary of a drop. That's why you see Stalkers in the back of my main. Do 3 Stalkers hold off 16 Marines and 2 medevacs? Absolutely not. But they do focus down medevacs and allow me to warp in units, get my Colossi there, that kind of thing, so I can hold off this attack.
Yep. Awesome. So what is your timing on the 3rd? Just whenever you think that this kind of push, whether it's medevacs or it's just a straight-up push, has gone away? Is that the time to get
question. Excellent question. The 3rd is one of the most important things in PvT play right now, because that Squirtle style we saw in GSL last night, but also we saw it at IPL, is so popular right now. I mean, it's been popular for a while, but he's displaying a really good execution of it. The basic gist of it is I'm running Double Forge now, as we can see, inside my main. The second Forge is finishing up here. And I'm producing Colossus. I'm working off of 5, maybe 6 gateways. A lot of Protoss go up to 6. I'm at 5 here. That's a lot of infrastructure. That's a lot of upgrading. And you can't really afford things like a 3rd, but some Protoss will try to force it. And if they do force that 3rd against a Terran that sticks to 2 base just a little bit longer, you can run into a situation where they show up with that great number of Vikings and just enough Marine Marauder medevac with good upgrades that because you took your 3rd, you're now going to die. So this is a lesson that I've been really trying to force myself to learn, because the Terran can actually, right now, I could scout that he's taking a 3rd. He could land the 3rd, he could be saturating, he could be mining from it, and I can expand like a solid minute and a half later and still be okay because I'm cultivating the perfect Protoss army that Terrans have such a tough time with.
I see.
And it's really tough for Protoss to remember that, because I, on a daily basis, will lose 1 or 2 games because I expand too fast, as silly as that sounds.
Right. Okay, so looks like he's run straight back to his base. He's starting to add, I guess, Marauders to his composition and Vikings. And at this point, when you decide to do the High Templar switch, do you just anticipate it, or do you actually, is it reactionary? Like once you see?
No, my build's set in stone.
Okay.
The only thing that would change this build, and what I'm seeing, is if you took a really greedy 3rd, instead of going to Templar tech, I might get there eventually, but I'm gonna actually add like 2 or 3 more gateways and go with like a 8-gate 3 Colossi attack.
Wow. Yeah.
Because there's no way in hell with the fast 3rd that he's trying to saturate can he make enough medevacs and Vikings to A, take out the Colossi in an effective manner, but B, deal with the huge swell of units coming out of my gateways.
Right. Gotcha.
And that's a really, really strong attack. That's the one that you actually will see. That's what Bomber fell to against Squirtle. I think he used against MMA as well. You should be on 1-1 upgrades. You have just a ton of units coming out of those gateways. And with 3 Colossi, if they get, I mean, the worst thing the Terran can do too is get kind of lazy with their Vikings. If they do for even 1 second, and you pick off all those Vikings, the Terran's just dead. Because 2 Vikings come out at a time, and 2 Vikings tickle a Colossus, right?
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
It's just not even close to being a scary situation for the Protoss.
So what's the magic number for Colossi? In
3.
3, okay.
Yep. And you'll notice I stopped producing them, so now I'm chrono boosting things like Charge and Storm. And I did go Blink this game. I've been experimenting with that.
Yeah,
I think it's significantly the better answer. It's why you see all the Koreans doing it, but it is much more micro-intensive, and its decision-making is much more... It rewards to a higher degree, but it's harder to execute, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. Azel with Charge is pretty simple, right? There's never a bad time to charge. It's like, you charge all the time. But with Blink, 1 bad Blink, and you're going to lose all your anti-air, and very expensive, and as well as a lot of gas.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you some more about that in a second, but it looks like a big battle's about to happen here, so probably want to talk about this.
Notice how he has no ghosts. So when he sees my Templar, he's going to hightail it out of here, or he's going to die. He's trying to get his Vikings into a proper position, blink up, focus down on them. And I mean, this fight's just going really well my way. The second that I notice, wow, he has no ghosts, and I'm the guy with Templar, I become the toughest kid on the playground, no question about it. Now, a couple nice things that are going on here. We do see this pylon spotting 12 o'clock, so I know he doesn't have that base.
Right.
So that means that the logical assumption here is he's taking his natural third, so that War Prism's in position to cause a lot of trouble, but of course I'm not going to be thinking about that until I finish off this battle in the middle of the map. So one thing, this is a bad engagement for me. My Vikings, or excuse me, my stocks are coming out of position, so I lose one Colossus for free. And while I did thin out his bio, I'm not killing those critical Vikings, so because he still has that Viking number, he can trade them for my Colossus like he just did, and now my army's neutered. While the upgrades 2-2 are nice, and I do have Templar to add out there, I need to retain my Colossus because I'm only producing them off of one Robo, and that's really critical to state. If I had like 4 Robos and was on 5 bases, it's no problem. I can remake them really fast, but at 1 or 2 Colossus, not scary at all, especially since I'm not killing his Vikings, but 3, 4, 5, those are terrifying. So yeah, I'm distancing myself in that time.
Oh, that's a nice storm. Yeah, I was gonna say this feels pretty scary. I'd be pretty scared if I were you here, but.
Well, this is tough. I mean, if you hit that income tab, I'm actually trailing in Harvesters. He's at a solid third base this whole time.
Yeah.
He's walking out units, now adding Ghosts, which means that the time for which my Templar are top dogs has come and gone. Just a few snipes, a few EMPs, and those Templar are actually completely useless. It'd be nice if they had a rifle like a Ghost, so they'd still have some purpose, but they don't.
Yeah.
They just kind of float around really slowly.
Exactly.
Now, I haven't applied any pressure on his third, and that's a big mistake, because my observer is showing me that he's rallying units outside his base, so I know that I'm safe to completely shut down that base if I were to show up with like 8 Zealots or something like that.
Right.
He'd have to pull back all of his units. He can't just rally to that, right?
Yeah, and what I didn't see was like really the War Prism just shouldn't shot there. I mean, that's like great placement for that.
Yeah. And here's that angle I was talking about that's really good on Talor Malter. See how his Vikings are shooting me, but I'm not shooting him?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's a really good position for him. So he does get all the Colossi. He's ahead roughly 40 supply. The thing I really have going for me is I'm on 2-2 upgrades. If you can see, I'm just a few seconds away from 3-3. And Protoss players out there listening right now, the worst thing you could do when you hit 3-3 is not take some form of an advantage at that time. Now that doesn't have to be attacking, but that does have to be like, I'm going to take an expansion, and if you want to come try to stop me from taking that, you're going to have to deal with my 3-3 upgrades.
Mm-hmm. Right. So one thing to notice is that you've pretty much taken out all his SCVs at his third base, and actually, mind pausing for just a second?
Sure, let's pause.
There's just so much action going on. I just wanted to ask you. So I know one of the issues that a lot of Protoss have, like in general when playing, is that they feel like they need every single unit to hold off that Terran army. You know what I mean? And that inhibits things like what you did over at third, which is like you did a warp in over there, right? And you actually took damage. So how do you is there a good way to really get a sense for just having just enough? Like when you obviously knew you had enough, at that kind of point of contention there. So you knew you could afford a warp in over there. When a lot of Protoss players, they would have just warped in right there, right, and then just won by a landslide instead.
I would tell you that it's less the question of when do I have enough, and it's more the question of risk versus reward. And the risk of subtracting 3 or 4 Zealots from your army versus the reward of, if they're not paying attention, or even if they are paying attention, shutting down an entire base's income.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll find that justifies the cost of those Zealots. Of course, the risk here is, again, would those 3 or 4 Zealots tip you in favor of holding off or dominating attack? And you'll find that it's much less the case that, like, unless he's showing up with just this giant ball of units and I've got no Templar, no Colossus, I mean, in that situation, it's all hands on deck. You got to hold off this frickin' attack. But if it's like we're microing, we have comparable amounts of units. If you look at the income tab and at the top right-hand side, I always have enough money to kind of build stuff off my gateways.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about the one base mining, the final 3 probes type of situation, in which case it would be actually, even in that case, it's still worth being the Zealots.
Right.
But I guess the point I'm trying to make is 2 Zealots can do a lot of damage, and that's what happens here. I mean, if you click on the kills of one of my Zealots, the one still there, 12 kills.
Yeah.
No way in hell is that Rain who just was microing his SCVs, but this guy just turns out to be the most badass Zealot in the world. It was simply because he has to micro his army. Like, his army is not this massive bio ball.
Mhm.
It's a ball of finely crafted, stimmed Marines and Marauders, and if they're not stutter stepping back, they die in a straight up fight. If they are stutter stepping back, they get value for their cost.
Right.
So, I mean, one of the nice points to make here is that as a Protoss player, you can always tax the actions of a Terran player with a very simple 100 mineral unit, the Zealot, where no one unit he makes off those barracks takes on a Zealot toe to toe. But if they're microed, they can. So that's why it's really nice to say, I'm making these guys, now you got to go pay attention to them. And because you're paying attention to them, I'm going to start winning this fight over here that is actually much more important. Now, if you don't pay attention, not only will you lose a lot more stuff, or let's say he is paying attention but chooses the easier route, he lifts his command center, gets his SCVs out of there. Again, every 5 seconds that ticks by, that's,
Zero income.
minerals.
Yeah, zero
200
income from that base.
minerals.
Exactly.
So
Okay.
it does a lot.
Cool. Why don't we start back up? 3.
What time are you at?
2023.
All right, 1 second. Let me get back there.
Okay.
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 So, go ahead.
Here you go. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so the one thing that's kind of bad is that's the second Colossus that's gotten picked off by a bad rally point. I'm usually actually really good about that. I set my rally points to my army, but because we keep losing our army,
Yeah.
my rally points have been a little bit wanky.
Well, when you lose the army, does it just stay home? I mean, the rally points.
Sometimes, and then sometimes, yeah. I mean, when the unit dies that it's rallied to, it will stop. But sometimes, like, we're fighting, and I'll set my rally point to where the fight is.
Yeah, and then I've done that.
And then the fight changes somewhere else, and then they come back to it, and there's a solo Colossus standing there. So that's a pretty bad mistake. If I hadn't done so much damage as third, that might have been the thing we look back on and go, gosh, you could have won there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, top right-hand side is a really cool thing, and I'd really encourage Protoss players to look at this too. Terran players are infamously bad at scouting because they often rely so heavily on just the game flow to scout. Medevacs traveling to places to drop. Probe transfers being spotted by scans, or just by them controlling the towers, that kind of thing. They don't very often actually scout around. So, me taking top right hand side is me saying, okay, the battles have kind of cooled off. I've got Templar. I need to be building up my Colossus count. So it'd be nice if I had 2 more Colossus right now, but I don't. So what I'm going to say is top right hand side, I can invest in this, and if you don't find it, that's the linchpin. That's what's going to kill you.
Mm-hmm. Let's see.
Because they're not going to scout it. And once I saturate it, that changes the entire flow of economy here. Now I'm showing up with, again, lots of Zealots. You can see that this is a really important base tempo because I now have the high ground and storm.
Yeah.
That's a really good advantage over those ghosts because he has to scan to see him.
Yeah, that's such a good position. It's crazy good.
Play feedback. Nope. Got him. He's only got a few ghosts. There's the feedbacks. And every time he gets hit by a storm, even though he gets out of it, because his army's so small and his medevac count, is so low because he's had to continuously build Vikings, his army's getting whittled down. So that's why, basically, what I'm doing with that pylon on top. I mean, look at how valuable that pylon is too. Like, this is such a random pylon, right? But if it's not there, I don't have this attack. I don't have this option.
So good. Oh no.
Yeah, that's. There's just no excuse for that.
You must have thought you killed it though, right? I'm guessing.
Oh, it's yeah. The planetary fortress, that should 1,000 times over. Like, it's quite silly that we're looking at it, but my excuse would be in the heat of battle sometimes makes stupid
it
choices.
doesn't matter later actually, but so the question is, so how much in your head right now is, okay, I've got a 4th base and I'm just gonna be in let's starve them kind of mode.
That's what I should have done. Like, this fight's really silly. I do this every once in a while too, where I basically get overconfident. I just lost 5 Colossus to a very small Terran army, and I basically said to myself, that base isn't really mining. It's got mules dropped on it. I've got 5 Colossus. There's no way in hell I could lose a fight. The only way those Colossus could possibly die is if they move into the middle of the map in the wide open space.
Right.
That's exactly what I did. So it looks ugly here, but that's more a nice little reminder for people watching that those are the kinds of lazy and short-sighted decisions that you can make. And I mean, this is a 25-minute game, And for the most part, this is an awesome game, but right there I could have lost it. And what a waste that was.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, you were having a commanding position and losing. I know that feeling. Okay, so now you're going to take it out this time around. And it's going to be stuck on really just one mining base, or half a mining base after this.
Sorry again, man.
It's okay. It's okay.
Alright.
As long as we can hear you, that's the most important part.
Yeah. So here we can see the base did go down. And that means I know that he's just on that top left-hand side third that he's had all game long. That wasn't like the backup third that he took. That was the original third. And at this point, it's almost impossible for a Protoss to lose. Because what they should do is, and what I think I do, is if you look around the map, look at the Templar just kind of randomly sitting there. There's one at top right, there's one at my third. There should be more added because I've got a lot of gas. Those Templar represent, hey, you might come after this base, and that's cool. But when you do, you're not going to have enough ghosts to EMP all of them because I'll spread them out. Yep. So it's going to cost you. There's a toll. There's an expensive toll. And any time in this situation you make Terran have to pay for 3 or 4 ghosts just around the map, or not ghosts, excuse me, Templar, it basically represents, it's kind of the same function as a Colossus in Templar and earlier situations where it's like, hey, you have to have ghosts because I have Templar, or hey, you have to have Vikings because I have Colossus. In this case, it's like, hey, you're going to lose half your army if you want to fight that base.
Right.
So it's always going to cost them.
And even in situations like this, where you're drops too, just one storm, a lot of times, or 2 storms, a lot of times, can kill half that army, which is obviously huge when you're talking about the number of buildings that they're probably going to be taking out here.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, this game in general, I think I've seen more random Colossi die than I do in a month usually, and that's pretty sad. But one nice thing, again, is we've got them kind of cornered, so you'd actually ask the question, at what point do you basically start to starve them out? This is that point, so why else would I have 6 Templar on a tower? And I do end up spreading them out. It's not as ugly as it looks. And when they get spread out, it's the same kind of question. From this like little launch pad, if you will, if he wants to try to take the only base that makes sense, which, I mean, you can see he's got a command center floating at 12 o'clock. Really, he should be pushing for that lower left-hand side. I guess we can call it 9 o'clock.
Right.
Yeah, there they go. They get spread, even a couple of cannons going up. I'm going to launch attacks from this base camp, so to speak, and being able to reinforce, being able to cycle out Templar, this means that there's no chance in hell that I lose this game. There's just none. 0.
Yeah, and you still have that pylon. That pylon, look at that. That pylon at 12 o'clock is just like...
MVP.
Crazy MVP, yeah.
And I had a Zealot there, so that's why I know that he's taking this base. And he had to float an orbital there.
Yep, exactly.
Actually, he didn't float an orbital. He built a new one, which is a mistake. He should have...
Did he?
Another nice thing, yeah, for Terran players listening, this is one of the coolest things, and I very rarely take credit for things, but I'll tell you what, one of the things I did do is I kind of talked with the Muslim about this. When your base mine...
Uh-oh. I think we lost him again. Guys, this wasn't a ladder game. This game versus... it might have been a ladder game, but it's against Fnatic Rain. Losing him again. Internet issues. But, you know, for the most part, this game is over. I mean, he's won this game, so we'll probably move on to the next replay once we get him back on here. Hopefully Jeff will be on in a second. But hopefully you guys are enjoying this. For those of you just tuning in, we have EG.iNcontroL on today to talk about PvT. We're going through replays right now. And
hey, dude, I'm going to try killing the camera.
Okay,
I
that's
think
fine.
It's the graphics card thing, so unfortunately...
Yeah, let me stick your picture in here instead. And we'll do that. That's fine. As long as we can hear you, like I said, it's all good.
Okay, thank you. And again, sorry about it, and just so all the listeners know, this is not on Chris's side, this is 100% on mine.
Okay, where are you? There you are. There's your picture. Cool. Okay, so, you know, I think this game for the most part is over. And I'd like to, you know, obviously try to get as much replays and hopefully some time for you to play at the end. So why don't we move on to the next one?
Sounds good.
And this was a great, you know, this was a wonderful replay to start off. So I think it's a really good base point to kind of see the differences in the next 2 styles. You guys hear that knocking? It's my kids knocking on the doors from time to time. Okay, so let's go to the gimmicks. Gimmicks replay. And again, viewers, this is replay number 2 with EG.iNcontroL talking about PvT. And this replay is on metal. Yep, looks like metal.
Yep.
And let's fast forward to 2 minutes again.
Okay.
And while we're doing that, why don't you talk about metal a little?
So you actually heard me mention in that last game how on Metalopolis it's a little bit harder to play the modern PvT style rather. And I'm at 2 minutes. Let me know when you're there.
Okay, I am there too. Why don't we go 3, 2, 1, go.
And that's because there's no ramp to the natural. There's a very wide open space, which means force fields, while still very powerful, of course, are less powerful here because 4 or 5 sentries are not going to block out a Terran forever. And their low DPS means that you've invested a lot of gas into units that have delayed an attack but don't have anything to offer after that. The next thing here, too, is there's always the possibility for close air positions. And close air positions inherently do favor Terran. It means that those drops that should be prevalent anyways are now more prevalent. They get there faster. They return home faster. They repair faster. Banshees are more dangerous. Of course, if they don't open Banshee, that's a moot issue because nobody goes like late game Banshee. That seems quite silly.
Right.
But those are the concerns. The thing about this map that's good for Protoss, it's again, I would classify it a middle-sized map, but that's still better than a small map, which we don't see as much anymore. And then there's really cool control aspects to this map. If you control the towers, and if you put those spotting pylons in key places like the main base's cliff line overlooking the low ground, those are great spots for warp-ins. They're good spots for spotting in general. This is a map where if a Protoss plays a very strong control-oriented style, they're in really good shape.
Okay. One thing, as a spoiler to this replay,
Sure.
One thing I did notice about this game was that I felt like you were aggressively expanding much more in this game. And is it because of the map, or is it because of something else?
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. There's a really cool thing going on right now in PvT. This is like the next stage, and it's very, very recent. Of course, it's not like it's never been done before, but it's just becoming more of a stylistic thing right now. In Korea, Protosses are taking thirds at ridiculously early times, like literally 8:30 or 9 minutes, super, super fast.
Right.
And what they're doing is that instead of double forwards, instead of going Colossus, they're sitting on like 8 gateways, and of course, maybe they have the robo for detection, maybe they have a single forge, where they go fast while it council, but they're not doing the double forge robo Colossus style. They're instead going for just huge amounts of units earlier. And I wanted to kind of try to experiment with this. That's what I used the ladder for, and that's of course where I played gimmicks. And I wanted to kind of push my own comfort zone in terms of when I expand. So again, a little bit of a spoiler, but this game eventually gets to a place where I repel an attack, and at that point in time, it's probably the best time for a Protoss to expand, because again, Terran has a very slow production rate, slowest of the 3 races, I would say. And that means that if I kill a lot of their units, I should be safe for a very good chunk of time. And if I use that time to tech or get out expensive units like Colossi or Templar, that's a good investment as well. But it's also a good investment to take a faster expansion that you know is going to be safe.
I see. And you're doing that with the feeling or the instinct that he's not going to be pushing you, like immediately too, right? Even when you're kind of pushing and repelling, kind of thing.
What's that?
I mean, when you're taking the third, I can totally understand like what you're talking about. You're taking the third, but you actually end up taking the 4th and 5th really early in this game too.
Oh.
And I was wondering if something about the Terran told you that he's not going to be pushing, or you just you did have this control of this.
Okay.
The map that you're talking about. So.
Well, I'll have to cover that when I get to it. Because to be honest, I don't remember that.
Cool.
But just off of what you're saying, it's almost guaranteed to be the case that I felt comfortable with the unit composition that he had, that I was able to dump my money into that.
Right. Okay.
Now, one thing I want to talk about here too, and this is again probably old news for a lot of people, but for any of these guys listening that just want a quick PvT tip, but really it's RTS in general. Let's talk about base economic management. You want to have 16 probes on your mineral line. So if I have 25 probes on minerals, let's say, of course this is excluding guys on gas, I want to transfer over 9 to my new expansion, so that one has 9, my main has 16, and then I set my rally point from my main to my natural mineral line until that hits 16, then you reset the rally points back to your home base. So you always want to maintain 16. So again, that's probably something a lot of people knew, but in this case maybe that's helpful. Now here you'll see he's about to attack me, and I don't have my my 5 sentries, right?
Right.
I've got more units than I do. That's because of Metalopolis. Now, pay no attention to the fact that I do end up losing, like, my first sentry for free.
Right.
Still after that,
yeah.
So I do hold it. I do lose all my sentries, which is really just really cool by him because he targeted them down. So that's exactly what you want to see.
Okay, so the purpose of that push by him was to just to reduce your sentry count. Would you say?
It's a really push by him. On this map, it's very successful. It has a lot of opportunities to do a lot of damage, again, because sentries can't deny it outright. But as long as he gets there and it's like, okay, listen, I'm not going to kill him with this attack, because clearly he has enough units to hold us off. But if I can make it as pricey as humanly possible, then that's a good trade. And at the end of the day, he lost, what was it, like 2 Marauders and then a bunch of Marines, but he killed, I think it ended up being like 4 sentries. And those sentries are 100 gas, but it's a special kind of gas. It's the first 400-ish gas that you got, right?
Right. Which
is very different from the 25-minute mark, where if you lose 4 sentries, it's usually not the end of the world. But in this case, it's like, well, gosh, that actually takes out a huge chunk of my army.
So you took that third, obviously, right behind that attack, and you know he had a decent number of Marines. And was the reason that you felt comfortable because you knew your Colossi was coming out, like literally?
Yep.
Okay. That's kind of logic behind that.
And I'm just pushing the comfort zone here. I mean, I'm only got 3 gateways, but with my stalkers out on the map, it kind of keeps him back. He wants this factory to float across, but I guarantee you, because I hit him up with my stalkers, he's a lot less likely to send it over there, because he knows he's going to see less.
Right.
It's going to get to my half the map, it's going to die faster, and he could just be potentially sacrificing unnecessarily a factory. The other nice thing about having stalkers out like that, too, is notice how the Terran player hasn't put an SCV or Marine on the tower. He doesn't want to, because he knows that I'm, interested in the towers, I would say. So it's nice little things like that, that while my army is not as strong as his, even with these Colossi out, it has effects on the Terran player. So I've grabbed the towers for longer periods of time, and I do have to be wary of drops, of course, but as long as I maintain an interest in the fact that he is capable of doing that, and I start saturating this third, I'm in good shape.
Drops we'll definitely get to in the last replay, guys. That's going to be that's a really good one for drops, so we'll definitely hold some of these discussion points for that.
Yep. So now, because I've kind of put him in the dark, he's not really quite sure what's going on. If you check his vision, he has no idea about the third. I've actually, like, for whatever reason, if I was to be critical of myself, I'd go back and say I was actually trying to do too much. My probe saturation on my main and third could have been a lot better. And that's partly because I'm adding double forge. I went Twilight Council. I'm still producing Colossus, and I'm now up to 7 gateways. I should have done these in tiers a little bit better. So maybe it's I take a fast third, but I don't go double forge. And in that time, I'm chrono boosting probes continuously. In this case, it doesn't end up hurting me again because the Terran player is playing so passive, and I do deserve some credit for that. I forced him into the situation where he's like, "Well, shoot, my factory can't scout because he's out on the map. I don't want to take the tower because it'll just be a sacrifice. I'll just sit back. He's probably on 2 base. I'm on 2 base. Let's just go ahead and make some stuff." When lo and behold, I've had my third a solid 3 minutes faster than him.
So talk to me about the probes you have at 8 o'clock and 2 o'clock. I mean, obviously they can build buildings, but are you using them as spotters right now? I mean, for drops?
All the above. Yeah, they're scouting. There's nothing worse than finding a hidden base as a Terran player, because if they drop mules on it, it pays for itself very, very quickly.
Right.
But there's some very key pylons that I do believe will go down eventually, but they are spotters for now. And here comes that first pylon. This is such a key place on Metalopolis. From there, I can see stuff coming towards me, but also I can warp in to go grab the tower with like a zealot. I can harass the main, I can harass the natural. It's just a really key pylon. That should get replicated several times over, but because of my observer at the location that every Protoss needs to get in love with, and that is kind of where the army starts to rally, I know that he's out on the map with that standard Terran army, Marine, Marauder, Medevac, and Viking. So right now, all my money is going into units.
I see.
And that's why we're not seeing those pylons just yet. It's because why worry about something like that when my life is on the line here?
Right. So the Terran is obviously pressuring you here, and
Yep.
a question I have for you is, why haven't you pressured actually up until this point? I mean, was there this?
Fast third.
Sorry, what was that?
I took fast third, man.
Okay,
I couldn't
fast.
fourth.
Okay, yeah, exactly. And you couldn't pressure until you reached max, I guess you felt, or was there actually another kind of?
I don't need to harass because I'm trying to spend my money to get my economy going. Like I said,
Yeah.
I tried to do too much with what I had,
Yeah.
so if I would have managed my economy a lot better, I probably would have been in a place to harass earlier. But here we're going to have our big fight.
Yeah.
Got to focus down the Vikings. That's exactly what my stalkers are doing.
Yeah,
And I should lose all my Colossus, but trading 3 Colossus for any damage they do and then killing all the Vikings means that I'm going to come out ahead there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But this Zell's doing some work.
Yep.
Yep.
So he loses that army. He does have a rally in the middle of the map, but in the meantime, I was once again harassing his third. And if you look at the SCV's loss, he's lost 11. Well, I've killed 11 SCVs, I guess, in that fight.
Yeah. Was that pylon down there, like there originally?
No, I built it.
Okay, yeah,
right
that's what I thought. Okay. But you had the other one anyways. You could have warped them in there too, and then just had them come down. So it's definitely well placed pylons all over.
So now, because of those 11 SCVs dying, you can see that I have actually leapfrogged ahead of him in terms of harvester count.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be pushing 71 here in a second, which means I can afford to go ahead and drop that 4th base. So that's what you were asking about here.
Yeah.
Now, the other reason why, and this is more to your point, the other reason why I can afford to go a 4th base right now is because my big area of effect units that I'm now producing are Templar, which are only 50 minerals, which means I am using up my gas, which is fantastic, but I'm freeing myself up some minerals, so I'm going to spin that towards the extra base.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, I did something else that I'd be critical of here, too. I went up to 3 Robo. I would never do that until I'm on a saturated 4th, maybe 5th base, because there's no way in hell I can use that right now.
Yeah, there's not
So
enough
it's like
gas,
dead.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like dead weight. It's planning for the future, but if I don't get to that future, then this is just a bad decision at the end of the day.
Right. Okay, so you're running all your units to the 4th just because you're probably thinking he's going to be contesting that new 4th since he sees it. Which he is.
Yeah, it's going to show up, but he, as you can see right now, has no ghosts. So what does it do? He scans, he sees Templar, and watch. I don't remember, but I guarantee he runs away.
Yeah,
It's a Storm Viking for his troubles, and he's just going to run home. It'll
Yeah.
take a little bit of losses for it. But then watch his production tab. Where is it? I bet the Ghost Academy goes down, or at least
Yep,
Ghost.
it does.
There it is. And that is just standard quo, man. That's standard quo.
Standard
That's like a new word, phrase rather.
yeah. English,
So
Latin.
that's apparent too.
Yeah.
So I'm going to saturate my 4th now freely. Look at that production tab. I'm even getting a Stargate. I'm going to start heading towards Mothership. Again, if I was being critical of myself, I would say, hey, you actually can't afford that gas right now. Hold off on that. Mothership tech's good, but you want to hold off on that until you're on like max with 4 or 5 bases. So again, I think this game I'm leaping ahead of myself a little bit.
Yeah, taking that 5th already, and let's see.
You can see the pylons on the right side of the map starting to take shape, so as long as I'm checking and keeping tabs on the towers, I know he doesn't have the high yield, which only leaves the right side. That's it.
Right.
So kind of a cool thing is in a long game, you want to make a final stand there. It's like, hey, I'm ahead in bases, so you're eventually going to want to catch up. And what that means for me is if I start like warping in Templar to gather energy here, if I even build cannons to kind of dig myself in a little bit, because Protoss always has free minerals, right? So that's kind of cool little stuff to do.
Right.
Then that means if you're slower to take your 4th and 5th, or if you can't because I'm holding you down, then I'm actually just going to drown you under the sheer weight of the units I'm going to produce.
Yeah, and that's the question I was going to get to you. I mean, at this point, do you feel like as long as you get a pretty good trade with him, with his standing army,
right?
Then I mean, you should just be able to roll over him with your production and your income plus your production capabilities. Is that?
It's damn near impossible, Chris. I mean,
Yeah.
look at my bases. My 4th
That's
has
what
2
I mean.
Templars.
Yeah, exactly.
Even my 12 o'clock has 1 Templar there. You know, for what? How the hell would he ever get there? And would I use that Templar? I don't know. But it's going to gather energy.
Right.
And then the new main that I just took, that too is going to have stuff. Now the last thing to add, a warp prism. So when I do start losing units and I free up supply, Terrans cannot deal with 20 zealots in the back of their base. They just simply cannot.
You can deal with 20 zealots in the back of their base. Right. Yeah.
So on that right side you're seeing, and here's the cool thing too, that I picked up off a hero. You want to leave supply open. So I'm at 8 supply for the mothership, but what I really should do is I should actually throw zealots off my main army. So that it leaves supply open, so that if he drops somewhere I can warp in. If I need to warp in Templar to feed back something, I can.
Oh, wow.
But if you max out and sit at 200, you're actually under... You're basically... You're vulnerable to their drops, to their harass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and kind of negate your ability to just, be everywhere, too.
Right.
So, yeah, that's really smart. Really, really smart.
Yeah, here's a very good player, man.
Yeah, he is. So talk to me about Mothership in this matchup. Obviously, PvZ, everybody knows about that, but
it's definitely not a must-have. It's just kind of a cool little flavor to add. It, of course, forces them to make more scans because your army's invisible. Mm-hmm. Recall is good for harass, obviously, and Vortex has been placed too. There's no Archon toilet by any means, but you can storm the crap out of a bunched-up army, and that's nice.
Yep, definitely. Very efficient, or very storm efficient, I guess you could say.
So now if you look at that right side, here comes that Templar. That's not, an award-winning storm. It's just 6 SCVs, but basically what that says to him is, hey, you're never going to fully saturate that base. You're never going to enjoy all the benefits of that base. And as he's now realizing he has to devote his entire army to stopping that, I'm taking the high yield. So not only does he have to worry about my army, there's the potential warp prism, but then there's also the expansion and his expansion going under siege at the same time. So again, it's that question we talked about earlier. If I can tax the actions of the Terran player, as a Protoss player, I'm almost always going to come out ahead there because, again, it's fewer actions for me than it is for him.
Right. Okay. So eventually that big battle will occur, but in the back of your head is you're just like, as long as you don't completely just really fuck it up.
I'm max.
Yeah.
And his base is under siege, so I'm adding a bunch of gateways so that when I do stockpile this money, I can instantly remax, which the Terran player cannot do. Unless they have a barracks for every guy that they can afford to spend, they're not going to be able to do that, right? So here he comes, his full army. And this puts him out of position, but he has to send his full army. This is a crap ton of cannons, and there's Templar in here, too. So he cuts through it nicely. He does eat a couple big storms here. That one could have been a lot better, but I did feed back a fully manned ghost, if you will. And then that was a big storm. The nice thing about that storm is it didn't kill anybody, but it forces all the medevacs to use their energy. And as you can see here, he's actually got a lot of energy, so it's not as big of a deal now. But still, just so that people are aware of that concept.
Yeah. So it's just waiting for the mothership, and then...
Yep.
Why don't we go to 4X here? Kind of want to get to the last one. We're kind of...
So here comes the big fight. This actually did not go very well for me. Kind of a bad angle. This is that lazy decision I make all the time again, where it's just like, gosh, no way I should lose. And I was right, but it's just a little bit higher risk than I would want. So he's going to lose his one base that he's mining from, and then there's that warp prism in the back of the main, and there's just no answer for that.
Yeah, exactly.
You cannot be everywhere at once.
And you've gotten good enough trade anyways that you could have just warped even from your base and probably killed him because you had so many gateways.
Yep, so DTs are showing up now around the map just to add extra cost again. You at least have to scan to kill them, and if you don't scan, then they're going to kill all your SCVs, and you also then have to make missile turrets.
Yep.
Then I show up with the next wave of army, and you're actually going to see the first PvT Archon toilet.
Where? I miss it?
Yeah. I don't know.
I actually missed it. Well, actually, it's not done yet, but I did miss it the first time I saw this replay.
It's on the right side.
Okay, let's watch this. Alright. Oh my god, look at those colossi. Holy crap.
Yep.
Alright, here we go. Archon toilet PvT style. Let's see it. Where is it? Okay, here it comes. One. Oh, no, it's two. Oh god. Alright, I'm gonna slow it down just right when they come out. Yeah, it's still pretty good. Still pretty good.
Yeah, it's nowhere near what it is against her.
Yeah, nothing like seeing 20 brutes dying like all at once.
Yeah.
But okay, great. Why don't we? Obviously, this is GG here, and why don't we load up the last replay?
Okay.
And viewers just joining in, what we're doing today is we have EG.iNcontroL on today to discuss PvT with us, and we are going through the third replay, and hopefully we'll have time for you to play one game and then have some questions at the end. For guys, those of you that want to ask EG.iNcontroL some questions at the end, start adding me on Skype. My ID is ChanmanV, and I will call you whenever it comes time. All right, let's load this up, Drewby. So this replay has a ton of really dropping and multitasking, so that's why this replay is really great. So why don't we again fast forward it to 2 minutes?
Okay, I'm ready to go when you are. Just let me know.
Okay,
That's
cool.
2 minutes.
Okay. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so close airs. With close air, you were discussing earlier that a lot of things can happen are drops, obviously, and even Banshee, right? With it being like that.
Yeah, it's a very uncomfortable position for Protoss to be in. Because even if I expand, I feel like I'm leaving my back vulnerable to just different kinds of attacks from Terran.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
Let's see. My probe does get in his base, and this is about to be one of the more reassuring feelings, because when I show up, and I head up there, and I should eventually check on his gas before, I die. When you see no gas like this is a big sigh of relief. You go, oh, okay. I mean, there's only 2 options for the Terran from there. They're going to go command center off the barracks, which is 9 or 8 times out of 10, and then the other one's like some Marine SCV all in, which is tough to handle. But again, when you can kind of narrow them down to two options, that's great. When they're mining gas, it's something like 1,000 options. So it's like, well, I'd rather just take the 2.
Right. Makes sense. Okay, so he's taking the command center, and
So we'll see here. We'll see if I do 1 gate expand or if I do some kind of wanky. Sometimes in close air positions, and a good example of this would be me versus Thorazane from Home Story Cup.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually on Metalopolis, where I go 4 gate warp prism, so pretty much exactly the same build you do against Protoss and PvP. It can work against Terran if they do a build like this, or what some Terrans will do is they'll do a build like this and then they'll even try to tech up to like Starport or Factory, and if they do that, it's absolutely lights out.
right.
In this case, it looks like I'm just going to go ahead and expand.
Okay, so pretty similar to what you've done in the last 2.
Yeah.
Right.
A little bit different. There's the third... actually, wait. As I say that... Yeah. Okay, there's a third pylon. So, the third pylon prolongs the Nexus a little bit, but what it allows you to do is continuously produce probes, and then, if you need to, continuously produce off the gateway as well.
Okay.
So you'll see a lot of people like this last game. I didn't do this. I did 2 pylons in the Nexus, and that's again just the slightly faster Nexus. So if you feel comfortable positionally or whatever doing that, then do it, because that's the better economic response. But if you're not sure what your opponent's doing, or it's a map that gives you problems, then this is the better option. So
Wow,
yeah,
you're doing a lot of damage with just the 2, the Zell and Stalker.
Yeah, this is really good.
But you didn't do that. You didn't do that the previous games, right? I mean.
I couldn't. There's a ramp. Oh no, Metalopolis? Yeah, I guess not.
Yeah. Okay.
And then Tal'Dorm Altar is not as reliable because they should have a bunker up. But if you can see here, this is really cool by Drewby. And then look inside his base, what he's doing. It's a little bit different, but don't write this off as something you'll never see, because actually, in the very series I played against Rain, the game we watched, one of the games he did this very build against me.
With the bunkers next to your Nexus?
No, not the bunkers, the 6 barracks.
The 6 barracks, okay, yeah.
So right now, I'm just doing very standard stuff, 3 gateways. The Robo went down before the gateways, because I felt pretty confident that after killing all those Marines, I'd be okay. And if he was only on like 3 or 4 barracks, or 2, I would be okay, but actually with this much, it's like, holy crap.
Yeah, I'm actually...
Like, good stop from, he gets the SCV in there, that's a big problem. That's, I mean, really good execution by him. Because now he can pull it out and repair, and continue to build the bunker.
Mm-hmm. So now you're just running away, waiting for a warp in, or waiting for warp gate, actually.
Yep.
Yeah, wow, this is a really crazy, interesting timing by him here.
Really smart. He built it outside of my vision, and because I was busy harassing him at his natural, there's very little chance that Protoss would ever see this going down. And with 2 bunkers and a couple of SCVs over there, I'm going to have my hands full trying to kill it.
Why didn't he stay with all his units? Just because of the stalkers, I guess? Yeah, I guess the stalkers can always kite them.
Well, he's hiding right now. That I have no idea. He's got 6 barracks, man. Like, that's not normal.
Yeah, true.
So if he shows up with 10 Marines, I start to figure out what's going on. But as it is, I have no idea. So he's waiting for a 1-punch knockout, and that's what he's going to do.
It's amazing he survived this, man. Gosh.
We'll see. So yeah, he shows up, focusing down the Immortal. Immortal walks into range of the bunker, but he's not focusing it down anymore. But even so, that's a lot of Marines, and on paper, Stalkers should be able to micro against them forever, right? But with latency, not possible. And I'm not even talking latency about different servers, I'm just talking about latency in general.
Yep.
That's why we need LAN. But I do whittle this down, and I think I saved the Immortal. It'd be terrible if I lost it. Okay, I do save it. And he's going to pull back. So if you look at the probe's loss, he's killed 5, killed my Nexus. And with Marines against a Gateway army, he's safe. He's not worried about anything. Immortal adds nothing to it.
Right. But you as the Protoss should check, at least, to make it, make sure that he is. Yeah.
Well, look what he's doing. He's building bunkers right now.
Right, exactly.
It just ends up being that he actually can afford to do this, but if I don't apply pressure back to him, it's kind of like in poker, where like if a guy goes all in, and then the guy after him says, well, I was going to do that. That's because his move's more powerful when he does it. It's not necessarily powerful to respond to your all in with that. Yeah. So that's the same thing here, where he's like trying to assert himself now, but if I wouldn't have done it, then he would have done it. Now, the nice thing about that Guardian Shield is he tried to pick it off, and because I pulled it back, he took a bunch of free shots. That's really important for Protoss. Because selected attack micro and then pulling it back, like pulling a thread through a needle, if you will. Usually it's the Colossus that we talk about, but in this case it was a Sentry. That is some of the best and most powerful things that Protoss can do. I mean, because how often do you tell every Stalker to target one guy in a Terran army, and then they follow it through the Terran army, right? That just doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly.
But in Terran, or Zerg, because we have Colossus that are such important units, it does happen that way.
Very true.
Now right here I can see his production, so you can see that observer in his base. I see that there's no factory, there's no starport. So this is actually fake aggression. I put down a pylon, I don't think he saw it. No, he didn't. But basically I'm trying to sell to him, hey, you did a lot of damage to me, so I'm going to do a 2-base all-in. What's actually happening back at home is I'm trying to play just completely normal.
Right. Got your robotics bay coming, and just probing away.
Yep.
Okay, so given that he's doesn't have any tech, does that allow you to get? Does that affect your third timing or anything like that?
Well, again, that would be where close air comes in. Like if I'm across the map from him on a bigger map, yeah, I'd take a third here. But because it's close air, I'm gonna hunker down. I know he's on 2-base, I'm on 2-base. That's fine. I see that he doesn't have a starport. He's just now starting the factory, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get Colossus out because Colossus are fantastic against anything you produce off those barracks. And as long as I keep tabs on your drop timing, I should be okay to hold off whatever it is you're cooking.
Yeah.
So he's going to roll out here, but Colossus, when Chrono Boost, actually build pretty quick. So we could see that just because he's going to hesitate here for just a moment, the second that Colossus steps out, even though my army looks pathetic next to his, I'm completely fine.
Well, Marines suck real bad against Colossi, so...
Yeah, they do.
Especially with no medevac, it's amazing how fast they burn up.
He does a cool thing here, as you can see, he's building 2 starports. That's pretty unorthodox. Usually it's like 1 starport, then you add another one later.
Yeah.
But here he's basically saying, well, if you're on 2 bases and you already have Robo, I'm not anticipating Templar tech, so I'm going to hard counter your Robo tech, and as long as I cancel out your Colossi, my Marine Marauder army will crush your Gateway army, because that's just how it is off of 2 bases. There's no way in hell I have a beefier ground army than he does.
Right. So, again, not to spoil this replay a little bit, there's going to be a lot of dropping involved, and kind of want to get your thoughts on that before it actually happens, as to like how you split and and how you just deal with like basically an attack on a third and an attack on the main at the same time.
Well, this is one of those games I'm really proud of. I'll take it to my grave because it gets pretty messy, and then I make pretty much all the right decisions, and I feel like it's one of the best games I've ever played, to be honest. But in terms of drop play, again, we're already kind of aware of the concept and how prevalent it should be because of positions. So what I should have done a better job of is spreading pylons in my main. You don't see that here, but I should have like a good spread of pylons. Now we're going to have a little bit of a fight here. I'm on hold position because I don't want to bleed forward outside the force fields. This attack in general is a little bit silly, but with good micro here, I'm doing a pretty okay job. But now I should have backed away. Like, these zealots walking forward never should have happened. I don't have a pylon terribly nearby, and when he pulls his SCVs like this, there's just too many bodies on the ground. So I lose that Colossus.
I see.
And I add Stalkers, and they're okay, but they're not so high DPS that it matters. You know, like, this is not good. I should have attacked like I did and then pulled back. But as it is, it's a scrapper game now.
Right.
And Terrans win scrapper games. So this is giving strength to that drop stuff we're about to see, because now medevacs are out. He's killed all my Colossi.
Yeah, your army's very small.
Yep. And I don't have... I mean, if I have 3 Colossi walking between my 3 bases as defenders, that's a really cool situation, because drops either just have to leave or they're going to die. But without the Colossus, they can't be everywhere at once. They're not, you know... they don't have blink or something like that. So this is a really nice read by Druby. Basically, he's like, okay, I just thinned out his army terribly. Even if his economy's better, which mine is right now. If you look at that, I have 54 SVs versus or probes versus 26, and although I'm only mining about 100 minerals more than him, there it is as the mules start to drop off. That's a great situation for me. The bad one is that I don't have the Colossi. So here comes my first Colossus. And he's going to poke around, and this is a really cool thing that he does. The factory can spot forever, because 4 stalkers would take 2.5 years to kill a factory.
Yeah.
But also, his army's more mobile with stim and the medevacs, so I'm in kind of a weird situation here. So what I should have done is, like I said, I should have more pylons spotting along the perimeter inside my main, so I can have that extra 3 or 4 seconds for these medevacs to pop up and then me to know they're coming. And had I not done a dumb engagement where I lose 3 or 4 Colossus for minimal cost to him, if I have 3 or 4 Colossus right now, drops are a lot less scary. So that's the next piece of advice I would give players. Is like really retain your Colossi specifically so that you can defend your bases better too.
Okay.
They're really good at defense.
Right, and like they can almost defend sometimes by themselves, right? If it's just depending on situation too. Yeah.
It's not ideal.
Yeah,
but
it's not ideal, but okay, here we go. So now he's doing the 2-prong, and you got the majority of your army at third.
all of it, yeah. It's that's not good either. I should have stalkers in my main. I mean, I don't have an observer out because I don't have the time to afford to do that, so that was rough. But this drop in my main is devastating. It's going to shut down the upgrades. Of course, this little harass in my third gets killed easily. The good news is I did pull my probes back, but this drop's just critical. He's going to be able to kill really important buildings. He gets my immortal, shuts down my gateways there.
Mm-hmm.
And then my Colossus walks forward, but his Vikings were in position to anticipate that.
Right.
So now my one Colossus becomes 0. And my Robo's depowered, so it's just not looking good. And in one foul swoop for a free drop, he completely neutered me. And even though I'm ahead in supply and I held off the harass of the third, I'm in real danger here. Now the thing working for me is that he's dumping every last drop of his money into his production. Yeah, he's got 6 barracks, which is really hard to keep up. But to make matters worse, he has 2 starports as well as one with a reactor. So
True.
He's not pooling money. He's not stockpiling money like he would be if he had only, I don't know, something like 5 barracks and 1 starport.
Yeah, this is very 2-base all-in on his part. I mean, it's just a long 2-base all-in type of strategy here. Okay.
So I do get the wiser. You know, the drop was very successful, so now I'm like, okay, I'll leave my stalkers in my main. And my zealots and my sentries and now Templar will be added to the front base. So my third's cool because I don't know, I guess I'm just kind of wagering that it is. Now here's a big fight. Good force field's there, pinching him down. Stalkers come over to join, and that's exactly what you want them to do. They have to be careful, of course, because they're not as powerful.
Alright, so the Vikings are just landing. The Vikings hitting your buildings aren't nearly as bad, obviously.
Yeah, that was more a silly thing by him than anything else, to be honest
he
with
lost
you.
like half of them. Oh my god. Oh, he's gonna lose all of them.
Yeah, he'll lose all of them.
Oh,
And they're
wow.
expensive. They don't... Like, killing a pylon or two... I mean, it's a cool idea. I can see what he's thinking, but... When they die, the Protoss says to himself, oh, I can make Colossus again.
Yeah, exactly.
If they stay alive, the Protoss says, I can't make Colossus.
Yeah, not to mention he's on 2 base, so like unit retention is so huge.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, he's kind of... Well, he's attacking a little bit closer. I mean, the fronts are a little bit closer in this one versus in your base.
Yep, and here he is. He's doing a multi-prong attack again. He gets a Templar that doesn't have Storm. Doesn't even have energy. Or it didn't have energy for a Storm, excuse me. But he's just starting to thin me out. As you can see, the supplies are going towards his advantage. But look at that pylon at 6 o'clock. That's the MVP pylon of this game.
Yeah, definitely.
Zealot just cancels out that third. And again, without that pylon, not only do I not know that he's trying to take it, I don't get to cancel it.
Yep. Okay, so here's the drop in the main. So now you're really, really spread out here. So talk to me.
Yeah.
Like, what do you... How are you going to handle it?
Control. Like, if you look at my resources, I don't even have, like, 900 gas to work with or something like that. There's no easy option for me to pull this out. So I've got Immortals walking out, just because, again, they're not susceptible to those Vikings, and they do pack a wallop. But now with this drop in my base, it's just playing catch-up. There's just nothing I can do. I got to get back over there to do something about it.
Nice
So they'll
storm.
get in, but they're out of position, so yeah, they shouldn't have been there even. So I think I'm a little bit behind you.
I'm at 23, 25.
Yeah, I'm a little bit behind you. I'll get to
Okay, I'll wait.
23:30.
Okay, here we go. Going.
Okay, so my production's depowered, so that's why I'm rebuilding at 12 o'clock.
Yeah, a couple of those storms, though, totally thinned out his army, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, they were lifesavers. Only on 1-1 upgrades because I, quite frankly, can't afford to do anything else. I mean, if you look up there, there's a lot of money, and people are like, what do you mean you can't afford? Well, my army's tiny. I need to spend it all on army, so once these gateways get back up to being powered, I can go ahead and start utilizing them. Now, I do see that he takes the gold, and by see, I do think I meant that... Well, actually, I see it now. There's an observer hanging over it. And that's just... That can't stand. There has to be some harass going there at some point. And I'm in a tough spot, because he's actually relocating both his orbital commands, which is a cool thing for Terran to do in general. Now he shows up to my third. It's like my one mining base, basically. My natural's kind of low. Meanwhile, he's in my main, closing that down, too.
That's crazy, man. Crazy.
My gateway's once again getting depowered. But at 1-1 upgrades, my units are pretty strong. He's at 1-1 as well, but I think at this stage, Protoss benefits more.
Okay, so how are you deciding which army to go after? I mean, they were pretty equal sized at one point.
I'm just making decisions on the fly. Like, I just
whichever one. Just clean up one of them, I guess is what's in your head.
Yep.
And then worry about the other one after that.
So income tab, I'm mining a third as much as he is.
Oh, that's a money storm.
Yeah. Down 20 supply, even after that storm. So he's going to show up again. And I just warped in Templar, so I make the snap call to make them in Archons, otherwise they're probably just going to die. And then with these force fields, I'm able to partition off some of his units. He does save him because he's, you know, pretty damn good player. But now, like, I'm starting to get a little bit of glimmer of hope, because while he is mining at a ridiculous rate, this is his whole army right now.
Yep.
And as you can see, he's kind of had a lapse in his production, so he's adding, what is this, 4 barracks? But that's 4 on top of the 6 he already had, which means he probably should have added those like 5, 6, 7 minutes ago, right? And had he done that, I think there's no chance in hell for me to come back unless I get the most money storms in the history of mankind.
Okay, so you're pressuring right now.
I have to.
Yep.
Yeah. I see that he's on mostly Marines, but if he's mining from his high yield much longer, I'm in real big trouble. And you can see how desperate this is. I knew that his medevacs were still out there, and I'm still not leaving anything. Like, I'm just... No chance in hell. So there's those big storms. He's mostly Marines, which means he can't take those storms for crap. He's at my natural now, but I'm closing out his high yield. And because I landed those storms, I know that I'm safe to then go on to his other mining base.
I see.
Or potentially attack his main, go for the gold. And by gold, I mean, like, you know, winning.
Yes. Kill move. Here. Okay.
So since using my 12 o'clock, not sure what that's all about. This attack was a little bit scary for me, because I was like, I don't have storms here, and if he did, with that high ground not being visioned, I actually am in trouble. But I'm able to pound it out.
How are Archons in this matchup?
Oh, they're great in low econ because they absorb damage really well and they deal out damage really well. I mean,
Yeah.
they're good. And if you look at my gas, it's very indicative of this kind of situation. Like lots of gas. He actually picks off my Templar Archives, which is really painful.
Yeah,
but
now you can't dump the gas anywhere.
But I can't afford it. So I mean, I can't afford to stop him. I guess is my point.
Yeah.
Barely mining my third. I've got 22 probes in total. Less than that now.
That's...
But I feel pretty good because after disrupting that mining of that other base, I'm like, well, wait a second here.
Yeah, y'all are both broke, but you have a bigger standing army.
Yep.
Or
So
actually, his army's pretty big. It's just stuck inside his base, though.
Yep.
So.
The big thing here is if you look at my third, I just warped in a bunch of. I mean, I have a bunch of Templar.
Your third. Oh yeah, there he is. Yeah, you've definitely had like a good number of money storms to protect one of the fronts, which I think played a huge part.
So this is actually that scary situation where the Templar, or Terran, excuse me, still has mules. So I'm actually mining off of 12 probes. He's got 17. But all he has to do is land at that 6 o'clock, as we can see, transfer over every SV like he is.
Yep.
And then he's going to instantly drop at least 2 mules. If he can save this other command center, he could do it again, but I don't think he will. But that observer, I'm spotting, I see it going down, I say to myself, okay. I just clean out my main. My main is in terrible shape, but I still have 5 gateways to produce off of. So I'm going to leave some Templar probably at my third, and then I'm going to go for it. I need to stop him from mining that base. And also my observer spots his whole army. Look at what his army is. It's Marines. The gooeyest thing a Terran could make, and it's not his fault. I mean, you could have half that army and be Marauders, but they would die to Zealots.
Not to mention 1/1 Marines, too.
Yep. So he's mining. He does save the top left-hand side.
Alright.
I'm going to leave 1 Zealot to guard that third LOL. That's how desperate this is.
Yeah, exactly.
But I know he has no ghosts, and these Templar are going to be frickin' gods.
Oh my god, seriously. One storm's gonna kill whatever's underneath it, right? So...
Yeah.
Here we go.
Let alone, what, 10 or something.
Yep. Oh my gosh, got so many storms. Alright, watch him die! Oh god. Oh man.
Yeah.
3 storms and pretty much the entire army's dead. Oh, 4. Easy, nice.
That's it.
Alright, wow. Crazy game. Those are one of those grit your teeth games.
Yeah, it was a scrapper game, man.
Yeah, totally.
Close air positions on Metalopolis is tough.
Yeah. Well, we're time-wise, we're kind of in between, and I don't think we could play a game that's like those replays. You want to try to show us something different? Maybe in a live game? Like
Sure.
More of a, I don't know, 2-base or some kind of timing that might be cool?
Sure.
Alright,
do
cool.
that.
Let me start up. What's a good map for it?
Well, I mean, any map can be. Cloud Kingdom, Daybreakers are fine.
Okay, let's do Cloud Kingdom. Okay, here we go. And guys, we're going to be doing Q&A with whatever time we have left after this. So again, start adding me on Skype, and then we'll do call-ins. Just a second here. All right, I got Masa lined up for you, so this is good player. So
Yep.
again, I'll try not to talk to you too much here, and just have you just talk like you normally do. Okay, here we go.
Go, go.
And Masa from Team Nightmare, good small team, or small team with a good number of players that people haven't heard about. They're quite good, actually. Okay. Okay, so what kind of build do you got in store for us here?
Well, it's funny. He's probably listening, but
Yeah. Turn off your volume, Moss, if you're listening.
there's a. I don't usually do this, but there's a style that's really cool that we've seen Puzzle do for quite a while, which is 2-base Templar opening with double forge, and you just have a ton of units. And whereas normal players would probably have like 6 gates and expand, he has 8 gateways in Templar, and he's just actually going for it. But it's a really strong all-in. Smart Terran players will do things like put up multiple bunkers and then actually block them down with buildings. And if they do that, your Zealots are obviously a lot less effective, but so are Storms, because they're not hitting as many things outside the bunkers.
Right.
The nice thing about the styles is that you can, from there, then just obviously take a third. You're not all in completely, but the downside of this is it's very weak against drops, because a lot of your gas is pooled into Double Forge, but then also the Templar tech. So you don't really have the ability to like leave Templar at home and feedback drops, which is your only counter to that. Because you also have to go charge first. It's not a blink build.
Okay.
So there's just things to consider.
Alright, Cloud Kingdom. Okay, so you're gonna open. You're gonna open pretty much the same though, right? With the.
Always, yeah.
Okay. No point in not, right? Double negative there. Okay. So how do you like this map?
It's great.
Yeah.
It's a good gridiron map. Like there's not a. I don't think it's grossly favored one way or another, but it's not disadvantaged. I mean, well, I guess it's kind of redundant, but I just like maps that allow the best player to win most of the time.
Yeah, I agree. This is a good one. It's a community-made map too, right?
I believe so.
It's very, very nice. Alright, let's just...
So I didn't get in his base, didn't see what he's doing. Again, you can almost always assume some form of an expansion build from a Terran, but you don't bank off of that 100%. So my first Stalker will probably get chrono boosted so that he can get over there the fastest possible and figure out whether or not I think this is an expand build or not.
Right.
The Zealot is just to give that, like if he doesn't go bunker, we saw the damage against Ruby. But then also, if he's doing some kind of aggression, like I otherwise wouldn't be building this Zealot. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that gateway would otherwise be doing nothing.
I see.
So I'm going to go third pylon actually, because again, I don't know what he's doing. Yeah, I can see his, nope, his SV was looking like it might try to circle around. Not the case.
This would be just a little faster than that Zealot. Okay, now your Stalker's out though.
Chrono boost on probes purely, except for the one on the Stalker.
Yeah. But with the combination of the Zealot and the Stalker, you'll definitely get a look here. Yeah, there you go. Wow, that's quick. That's a quick reaction there, man.
So again, I don't know what he's doing. So I'm going to kind of stay around. Once my shields get back up, I'm actually going to poke in a little bit. Try to see if I can see that command center.
It's a well-placed bunker. So you don't trust the bunker, though. That you don't assume there's a command center behind it.
You do assume. You just can't. You can't.
There it is.
Like tell yourself that that's 100% the truth.
Yeah. Okay, so now you know for sure, and.
Yep.
Okay, so adding your 2 gateways and. When did the forges come here?
Soon, man.
Oh, I mean,
Patience.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering. I actually was curious. Okay, gonna get that SUV. There you go.
Yep, gotta build up the other stuff first. You can't just launch into Double Forge right now. It'd be really awesome if it worked, but there's a good chance he just attacks and I die.
Right. Okay, observers out. Now you're gonna get a good look at everything. There it is. Nice pylon on the left there. I like it. Alright, so same thing with the sentry we were talking about earlier in the replays. You got guarding that ramp, keep it safe, and you're going there are the double forges.
And very standard stuff from him so far. He's very interested in killing this observer, so I'm going to try to get away. Probably won't happen. Might though.
Oh, is it just out of range back there? Actually, I think I've tried to hide an overlord back there before. I don't think there it is out of range. Yep, still putting pylons around the map. So diligent. Okay, so you're up to what, 6 gateways now? We're building 2 more.
We're just chrono boosting forges exclusively.
And guys, I'm trying not to talk too much, guys, because I kind of want to see Jeff play this one full out with the build that we're going to be going over here, because Masa is a really good player. So you guys might not know Masa, but he's a really good player, actually. Okay, looks like he's going to be pushing out, so he's going to. Wonder if he's going to be surprised to see what you got there. One getting two started 2-2. Huh. Donated 2 guys there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, nice. Oh. Pick up by him. Oh wow, nice force field.
Yeah, it's okay. Doing a lot of damage.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like he's just actually gonna rally across here.
Yeah, looks like he was going to base. Kind of full out pressure here too. Alright, state of the game right now.
Did a lot of damage, but he also lost a lot of his units. I'm gonna hit 2-2. So we'll see.
Okay, weapon in that front side.
Upgrade complete. Upgrade complete.
Alright, guys, up to 2-2 at least now. Ahead of him in upgrades, so this should be work out pretty good here. No, get that flank. Nice. Archon's having a field day. Wow, this is good time. That 2-2 is really going a long way.
Yeah.
Alright, let's see what this. Just gonna keep rallying guys here. And for you viewers, just to let you know, Jeff's showing us a 2-base kind of build because didn't have a crap load of time. So
Yeah.
yeah, we want to get some questions here in a second, so that's why he's doing this. He normally, I'm not sure he would normally do this on this map, but
Nah.
it's all good. This is strong, regardless. This looks pretty darn strong. Look at all those zealots, man. Okay.
So he's now on equal upgrades.
Yeah, just kind of. It's gonna be tough. He's got that little choke and supply depot is blocked there. It's gonna be. Why you gotta do this, Masa? Okay, alright, War Prison time. Oh, pushing out. Alright, here we go. A lot of medevacs though, holy smokes. Oh, you missed with the MP. Oh, we got one.
Yeah.
Alright. Close.
Yeah.
Close. Alright. GG. That's fun though. I can see why that timing's really good though. That moment where you have the 2-2 versus 1-1. Yeah, that was definitely, I could tell. I could see the power of your army there. Okay, so what we're going to do, guys, we're going to have Jeff, well, we're going to have you guys ask questions to EG.iNcontroL and have you call in. So all you guys have been adding me on Skype. I will start calling you guys. We got Jason first here. And you can ask EG.iNcontroL about any matchup. It doesn't have to be PvT. And thank Moss for the game. Okay, looks like Jason isn't around. He was one of the first guys to add it, so. Alright, let's have this guy. Michael Burns, you're up.
Hey guys,
Hey, how's it going?
it's going awesome. Jeff, I'm a big fan of yours.
Oh, thanks.
Even though I don't, I play Zerg and Terran at a master level, so I guess my question's going to be from your opponent's side.
No problem.
I'm having a lot of difficulty against Protoss once they get the third base. I find that my entire game revolves around trying to deny Protoss the third base in general. Like, what's the most annoying, obnoxious things that people can do to deny your third base?
As a Zerg?
Well, as a Zerg and Terran,
Okay.
if you could answer both, that would be great.
Sure.
But
As a Zerg, I would really start working on, because it definitely takes like a feel for it, lane counters. So You definitely want to still try to kind of focus around that 12-minute roach style that we see Stefano popularizing a lot. And that's not necessarily like a third counter, that's more just like if you do a 2-base all-in, I will crush you. If you take a third, I will crush you. But I'm going to have these roaches and I'm going to attack with them. Whereas in the past, we've seen Zergs make a ton of roaches and then be like, oh, wow, he didn't attack, so I guess I'll just sit here with him forever. Which is like the worst thing you can do. But if you want to delay thirds against like a 2-base all-in, or if you really just want to irritate a Zerg, or excuse me, Protoss, have 20 speed lings with, maybe melee upgrades, or I guess if you're doing that roach timing, then perhaps not. But they just run in, and the second that Nexus goes down, they cancel it out. And the idea here is you don't want to be fighting, because 20 lings don't represent any kind of attack force. So if his army shows up, you do the best you can to get out of there. If they die, Zerglings are essentially free, so it's not that big of a deal. Of course, if you do this 3, 4, 5 times and you're not getting any kind of return on them, then it starts to be really painful for you. So that's what you have to be careful for. And then as a Terran, it's just that classic Terran timing where the first 2 medevacs pop out, you need to be top dog on the playground, you get outside your base, and you start to look for an opportunity to spread the Protoss thin. A good Protoss will have Stalkers in their main, and then like Zealot, Sentry, whatever, outside, trying to stop you from that kind of an action. But if they take a really fast third, you can spread them out pretty nicely there too.
Yeah, I just have a really hard time with tier 3 in general.
Yeah, I mean,
both races, I mean, it's pretty tough, yeah.
It's tough, but there's definitely ways to negotiate. And I think the hardest time I have against Terrans are the ones that, kind of like we saw Massa do, like just really aggressive. And if I make a couple mistakes, like let's say, yeah, I ambushed his army and that was really cool, but then he just picked up and went to the high ground and he got a bunch of free shots out on me, and then by depowering those 2 gateways, he cut my production in down a third, right? So in that position, he should have gotten his ass handed to him, and I should have been sitting there smiling and talking about how awesome I am. But instead, he made a couple really good choices, and he came out at least even, if not ahead, in that situation. So that's
yeah,
where
he
Terrans,
was like 30 supply up at that point, yeah.
Yep, that's where Terrans start to get it.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. Well, got a bunch to call, so I gotta get to some.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for the
Support
questions.
Frag for Cancer. Bye.
Thanks, man.
Yep, thanks. Okay, Jason, that first caller's back, so let's see. See if he answers.
Hello?
Jason, what's up?
Hi Jeff, thanks
dude.
for sharing some awesome games today,
Yeah, thank you.
and very well played. I just have a quick question on Protoss versus Terran. How do you stop the infamous 1-1-1?
It starts with a 1-gate expand, and then it's just varying degrees of how fast you can catch on to the fact that you're being 1-1. So in my game against Massa, you saw me sacrifice the majority of the health of a Stalker just to get vision of a command center. That lets me know that there's not a 1-1-1 going on. But if I go past a bunker and don't see a command center, then guess what? He tried to pull a fast one over us. So that doesn't mean that you flip out and cancel your Nexus and build 17 gateways or something like that. But what it does mean is you go faster Colossus, you're producing less probes, you're maybe spending less Chrono Boost on probes. Like, the second I see that there's a good chance he's doing a 1-1-1, I don't cut probes yet. I still build like 3 or 4 more cycles of pairs of probes being Chrono Boosted, but after that, I'm not building probes, whereas if I see that he has expanded, I'm continuously building probes. And then we get out, our 2 or 3 Colossus and add X many units. We have our Stalkers in the back of our base, behind both mineral lines, to make sure that we don't get Bansheed. And as long as we hold off their harass, and then they show up and we've got 1 or 2 Colossus, we should be in good shape.
Would you prefer Immortals or Colossus?
No, I'm a Colossus guy. Like, most of the 1-on-1s that come out have very huge Marine contingencies, and then they bring half their SCVs. And the reason they do that is if you have too many Immortals, your Immortals are not getting the bang for their buck shooting at a Marine or an SCV, right? And then with a couple tanks and then the Air Force that they should have, you're too slow DPS, is essentially the point I'm trying to make. But I do like to do against 1-on-1 when I'm building the Robotics Bay, Chrono Boost out an Immortal, maybe 2. So I still have those 2 Immortals, so if he shows up with 3 or 4 tanks, I can tank that damage, but I have the Colossi killing all the little guys.
So would you only make Zealots from the gateways and spend all your gas on Colossus? And
Mostly,
the range
yeah.
upgrade?
It's like 1 or 2
Okay.
sentries, because obviously like 5 sentries don't help you against that composition. And then it's mostly Zealots, but as the 1-1 starts to take more shape, I'll add more and more Stalkers. But also against that Banshee harass, you want to have 4 or 5 Stalkers, so it's not like it's only Zealots outright.
And let's say he pulls every single SCV, would you pull probes as well to try to hold it off?
It's tough. If you see a bajillion SCVs show up and it looks like it's every single one of them, you don't pull all your probes, but it's certainly, well, I was about to say it certainly doesn't help, or doesn't hurt, excuse me, to pull your probes, but maybe it frickin' does, so you just kind of got to go situation by situation. But as a rule, if you were like to put a gun to my head and say which one is it, I would say don't pull probes.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, Jason. Thanks for the questions. Okay. Who we got next? Andre. Oh, yeah, look at that picture. Andre, you there? Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Hey, you got a question
You guys
for...
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, first, big fan, Jeff.
Thank you, dude.
I got a problem with a lot of Zergs now in EU starting to go like Stefano, like 11 minutes or 12 minutes max.
Yeah.
On roaches. Like, how do I stop that?
Sure. It's really common right now, so I'm not surprised you're facing it. And the reason I open up this way is I would say just kind of get ready. You're going to be facing it for a while, because this is, I think, getting closer to how Zerg should be played. It should, the way, well, first and foremost, let me tell you this. There's not just one build that holds it off. There's a multitude of builds that can hold it off. If you open Stargate, that urgency to do damage is now twofold, I would say. You cannot go 1 or 2 Void Rays, kill 3 Overlords, and call it a day. You're going to lose out against that all... it's not an all-in, but that timing. The Void Rays need to kill a queen or 2. They need to harass a base. They need to force Spore Crawlers. They need to force extra queens. And then they need to pull back, and they need to be on Roach duty. While you're not going to kill a max Roach army with 2 Void Rays, you're certainly going to do a lot of damage to them for free. So make sure and kind of keep that up. And also, a lot of Zergs, especially at the lower tiers, will freak out. They'll be like, well, I was going to do 12-minute max, but because you have Void Rays, I'm now going to add Hydras to the mix, or wait till Infestors. And if they do that, that's a really good situation for you, because they're over-exaggerating the value of those Void Rays. So that's Stargate openers. If you do a Robo opener, it used to be that you'd go like 4 or 5 gate Stalker, expand, then Robo. That's a thing of the past. What it normally is now is it's 1 or 2 gates Robo, of course with the Forge Fast expansion. That's what I'm assuming with all these builds, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
And then you walk out Immortals as you get up to at least 10 sentries, but a lot of players go up as high as 12. And what you do with that army is they look at... It becomes like the perfect anti-Roach army, so you need to make sure they're not switching to mutas like Dong Regu style. But as long as they're kind of following their robotic little tiny brain, not to make fun of Zerg players, that was actually
Come on, dude.
I know. But they should just attack anyways, and you should have 3 Immortals, about 12 sentries, X many Stalkers, and as long as you see it coming and you do a good job taking the proper angles, you are going to come out cost effectively ahead. Now the question you would ask is, do I have a third already up?
No.
Or should I be on 2 bases? And it's tough to say. If they are like hardcore 4-hatch 3 base, 60 drones, pure Roach, the third could be a liability unless it's a really cool map that gives you great angles. And I'm trying to think, like, the best one would perhaps be Daybreak, but even that one's actually kind of hard to hold, so maybe Taldor Altar. Taldor Altar is a lot better than Daybreak in that regard. It's also, well, in some situations it's a bigger map. But the point I'm trying to make is you don't have to do a 2-base timing with this, but you look like you are because you've scouted that they're doing this max Roach timing. Does that all make sense?
Yeah. So if I go Robo, like I usually do, it's like defend mode.
Yep.
You're not making a timing attack against that.
And my biggest advice here too would be don't go too much, like, you should have 3 Immortals. Maybe it's like 4 or 5 in an emergency weird situation where the guy's added like Tunneling Claws and he's just really going for it. But in general, about at 3 Immortals, you should be making your way towards Colossus, unless you've been informed that he's got a Spire, in which case you go Blink Stalker into Templar at 3 base.
Alright, thanks a lot, man.
All right, thanks, Andre.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Tutor. And guys, we're taking questions right now. We're having callers call in and ask Jeff their Protoss questions.
Hello, sir. Thanks for having me. I've got a question. When I go for 8 gates to base, I'm having a few issues to the point where I'm really not sure what buildings do I need to get. Like, do I need a Robo? What upgrades do I need to do? What units do I build, if depending on the composition?
Well, if you're 8 gating off a 2 base, you need to just kind of make the logical leap that you're essentially doing an all-in. unless you kill a third or kill the Zerg or just do tremendous amounts of damage, you're very, very behind. So any choice you make after an 8 gate off of 2 base that doesn't do a lot of damage is simultaneously the correct and wrong answer. So you could go Robo, you could go Stargate, you could go DT. Like, any of those could be correct or they could be wrong, and it's because you're so far behind. My biggest piece of advice to you would be, if you are working on two base all-ins with 8 gates, you want to be looking for ways to make it faster and trim down things like Huck oftentimes does it off a 2 gas, just because he's going to warp in mostly Zealots, and the gas that he kind of stockpiles off of that starts to lend itself into the transition of like a third and a Robo and those kind of things. But he's hitting at such an early time that he's almost guaranteed to do damage with those Zealots, because at most he's facing like 10 Roaches and Zerglings, right? Whereas if you attack like a minute and a half later, maybe you're facing 20 or 15 Roaches and a bunch of Zerglings, in which case your Zealots make a really good fireworks show, and that's about it.
So in the best conditions, at what minute should the attack land? 12,
You know, I
11?
don't do 8 gates very much. No, not 12 or 11. It's like 8:30 or 9 minutes.
Yeah.
So
Super
anything-
fast.
Anything later than that is just GG. Can
Right,
defend it.
right.
Right.
So you
Alright.
want to walk out Zealots off your gateway and make sure and like throw down those pylons next to the bases, and you're going to do it by having them being bodyguarded by those early Zealots. And then you just Chrono Boost Warp Gate upgrade and maybe a couple Chrono Boosts on the +1 attack that you should have started fairly early on. Outside of that, you can still continuously build probes to a certain extent. You start having to cut them. You should have 16 on each mineral line, but it's like just 16, and then the 6 on the gas. So I guess that's 38 probes, something like that, maybe even less.
Alright, thanks a
All
lot.
right, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, gonna take about 3 more, and then we'll call it a day. All right, Kevin. Oops, let me move this guy. Kevin. Kevin Seabury or Seabury.
Hey, sup guys?
Hey, what's up?
So I was just, I'm a Platinum Terran, and I've been having let me mute the stream. I've been having a lot of trouble with just, like, Protoss tech switching. Like, I'll make 16 Vikings, and then they've only made 2 or 3 Colossus, and now they have, like, 7 or 8 High Templars, and I'm just screwed in the engagement. So how do I know about this tech switch? How do I, like, spot it, or how do I know when to scan for it, or etc.?
As a Terran player?
Yep, as a Terran player.
That's a great question. In general, I mean, it's pretty rigid, because these are like the guidelines that are generically true, but you're gonna face guys who just keep making Colossus, right? And if you show up with 2 Ghosts, it's not like they're pointless. EMP is still nice, but
Right.
you would rather have had that money be spent on things like extra Vikings. And then there's going to be guys who build 2 Colossus and go into Templar, or 1 Colossus, and they don't even get the range and they go into Templar. That's the old one we used to see that's really screws with Terran. So the short end of it is the best Terran players that I play against have a good gauge on what the Protoss is doing, because they're constantly out on the map. They're grabbing towers. They're dropping in the main, picking off a pylon, lifting off, and leaving. They are using Marines to patrol around looking for a third. If you're not seeing a third, if you're seeing that Colossus count get to 3, that's the time when I would be like, okay, normally I don't want to scan, but I'm going to spin a couple scans to see if I do see that Templar archive, or even, better yet, Templar themselves. Otherwise, you should be on like 2-ish bases, maybe with a 3rd command center, just producing SCVs and dropping mules, so you're not exposed, and it's not extra cost. And then at about 3 Colossus, you're actually okay to throw down a Ghost Academy, just carte blanche, and the reason is, again, your economy should be developed to the point where you can support regularly produced Vikings and Medivacs, but then also eke out a couple Ghosts, which are still, again, fantastic against everything. So if the guy just keeps producing Colossus, sure, it would have been nice to have those Ghosts, but as long as you're doing a good job scouting, maybe you just wasted money, quote-unquote, on that Ghost Academy, but not the Ghosts themselves, because you weren't so informed.
Right, I pretty much lose to basically a Protoss that is really, really greedy, and then a Protoss that just all-ins me with like a 6 gate or 4 gate, and I seem to just have extremely hard time holding off both of those, because if they're really greedy, then they're going to have more of everything, and then if they 6 gate me or 8 gate me or whatever, then I'm just super screwed.
I'm not going to lie, it's really hard, and there's a lot of players that are having a lot of success by taking severe risks. So they're cutting out like really strong tenets of what should be very solid play in the name of bolstering another aspect of their play. The best, I mean, again, basically the first thing is like kind of like a recovering alcoholic. The first step to recovery is identifying that you have a problem, right? And just kind of come to grips with that. It does exist. People do take those risks. The very strong kind of pillars of your play that you should fall back on that kind of edge against that is you don't take severe risks. You don't need to do that. But what you do need to do is cover your bases. So that's why the Ghost Academy at roughly 3 Colossus count represents that. If they don't go Templar, then essentially, quote, you did lose money, okay, I guess. But it's still the safest answer to the most problems, and that's the best way to play StarCraft, to a reasonable extent. You do have to take risks, obviously, but you don't want to take risks for their risk, because then you're playing a terrible game of StarCraft.
So, like, if I was a Grandmaster Terran player, what would be, like, the most annoying thing I could do to you in a game? Like, you know, what's the most annoying thing Terran does to Protoss that I can abuse on ladder or whatever?
There's no one thing. I mean, like I would say, that last game I played against Massa, I mean, yes, I was doing a style I never do, and he caught a few breaks there, but the basic gist of it is very aggressive, multitask-oriented Terrans are the ones that are going to win more games. Look at Select. He doesn't have the best macro in StarCraft 2 by any stretch of the means, but what he does have is fantastic battle micro, and it's won him championships. It's got him a huge contract. He's one of the more prolific players in the scene.
Okay. Well, thanks for answering all my questions. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Kevin.
Cool.
All right, actually, this is going to be the last one. We're running out of time. Okay, Morg 607 Penguins. Sorry, guys, for the rest of you guys that are in the queue, but can't have Jeff here all night. I know you guys would want to. I want to ask him just a million questions, so. Okay, maybe he isn't the last one. Sorry. Okay, Ben Brown. See if he's around.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good.
What's up, dude?
Not a whole lot. I had a 2-part PvT question for you.
Okay.
First off, you were talking about that tech switch from Colossi to High Templar. Is there anything that you scout during the game that makes you decide, you know, I'm gonna go High Templar first instead of Colossi, or vice versa?
No, I mean, usually you should have that kind of worked out in your head via your opponent and the map itself. Like Cloud Kingdom, if I were to pick the perfect opportunity to do that kind of a 8-gate, high upgrade, charge lot, Templar style, I would not pick Cloud Kingdom because it's so easy for them to pinch down that choke leading into the natural with depots and bunkers and that kind of thing, much like he did. And I would more likely pick a map that's more wide open, so like Metalopolis would be fantastic. Shattered Temple to certain degrees is fantastic. Maps where that's more of a possibility. I mean, that's just that build and that specific scenario, but that's what I would have you thinking between the two. In terms of what I would scan to then determine if I'm going to go Templar, like off a Colossus build, it would be something like, okay, he's not taking a third, he's sitting on 2 bases, I'm not going to go Templar, I'm just going to bolster my units because I need to go toe for toe with him. And there's actually people that will have 100% the opposite thought process, and that's okay too. But the point I'm trying to make here is that's what you would scan, that's what you would inform yourself on, and then you would make the decision at that point in time.
Okay. And then when would you make the decision to make that switch from Templar to Colossi, or vice versa?
Great question. That one's more of a base count question. So you should use Templar openings to secure a pretty quick third, or you're doing a 2-base all-in, and I obviously recommend the quick third. And then once you hit that third, you should be going into the transition. Of course, the big question here is how much of your money is being spent rebuilding units because he's attacking you? If the answer is, well, gosh, we're spending all our money trying to rebuild units, then now would not be the time to do a Colossus switch, right? But if it's kind of a Pax Romana in the Protoss world and the Terran's just leaving you alone, that's when I throw down 2 Robos, a Robotics Bay, and I pump out 2 Colossus at a time. And I'd even like to hide them. So if he drops me, do not show your first 2 Colossus. Like, keep those guys tucked away, because if you can show up with 4 or 6 Colossus, and you'll notice that foregoes the 3 Colossus rule that I talked about earlier, he probably doesn't have Vikings, or he has very few, and you're going to... How easy is it to attack with Colossus? It's 2 clicks, you know?
Hey, move, baby.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right, Ben. Thanks for your question.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Jeff.
Yep. Thank you, dude.
And that concludes Q&A, guys. And thanks, Jeff, for answering all those questions, and viewers for calling in. Why don't we do shout-outs?
Sure. First and foremost, shout out to you, man. I've actually been working with Chris for a long time,
Yes.
and as has Machine. teammate of mine. So if you guys, if this is something you're getting benefit from, do your part. Just retweet it, post in the thread on Team Liquid. I'd like feedback as well. Sometimes it's easy for me to kind of ride my own coattails in coaching and just assume I'm doing a good job, but it'd be nice to hear criticism or compliments or whatever people thought about this. So just definitely post in that ChanmanV thread and let me know what you thought about this session in particular, what we can do better, what we can do differently, that kind of thing. And then, as always, my team Evil Geniuses are sponsors: Intel, SteelSeries, Kingston HyperX, Monster Energy, Sapphire, and everybody else.
Everybody else. Wow, the list has gotten a lot shorter, man.
The list that we have to say is.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I mean, exactly.
And then also, just check out my stream. I'm actually right after the session gonna have my graphics card fixed, so hopefully I'll be back to streaming at least today, but maybe tomorrow. And that's EG.iNcontroL TV on Twitch TV, of course. And then just follow my Twitter, EG.iNcontroL. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Again, thanks for being on, man. And again, hopefully we'll have you on, pretty regularly. I'd love that as long as you're up for it. And
absolutely.
This guy makes, you still make me giddy when you're on the show, dude. I don't know why. It's like everybody else, I've been no big deal, but when Jeff's on the show, it's just like, oh my god, I just freaking, I just know that we're gonna be talking strategy, and it's like somebody that talks strategy even more than I mean, better and more articulate than I am. So it's so awesome. But
too kind.
But thanks everybody for watching. We're going to be doing, again, we're starting the giveaway for Monday's show. And Monday's show we're going to have Machine and Sheth on. So start entering. The giveaway is for a TT Esports Sapphire mouse, gaming mouse. It's the White Raw branded mouse. Check it out. It's a great mouse. And if you guys don't have a gaming mouse, definitely enter the drawing because, why not, right? It's free stuff.
Yeah. Gotta
love free stuff. And VODs for this show will be up later tonight or early tomorrow morning, and I think that's about it. The only thing I should say is big thanks to TT Esports for sponsoring the show and doing the giveaways. So tweet TT Esports, let them know that you appreciate them doing things for projects like mine. This kind of more grassroots-ish type of projects, which we need more of in the community. So
I hear you.
Yeah, let them know that. But okay, we're just gonna call it a show. We will see you Monday. Peace out. Bye.
Bye.